Constantine, City of Demons, a new feature-length animated movie from Warner Bros. Animation, Blue Ribbon Content, and DC Entertainment, arrives on Ultra HD Blu-ray, and digital on October 9th. At the 2018 New York Comic Con, I had the opportunity to sit down with writer J.M. DeMatteis to talk about writing an R-rated cartoon, the enduring appeal of John Constantine, and the characters he'd like to adapt to the screen.
Well, this I've never done one like this before because of this whole CWC mini episode thing that they did. So I wrote this as a full-length movie, and then we went back and found the breaks for the individual episodes, very consciously leaving out pieces of it so that we would have enough for a full-length movie at the end. So I've never had to work like this. It didn't really impact me initially because I was writing just beginning to middle end of the movie, but then it was a really interesting process to watch how they went back and cut these things up into these mini episodes, which actually ended up working really, really well.
Do viewers have to have seen Justice League Dark before watching this film?
I think this is completely self-contained, standalone. If you've seen Justice League Dark, it's fine. If you know Constantine, fine. But this, in a lot of ways, is an origin story because it gets into a lot of backstory with John and Chaz at the beginning of their lives. So you can just walk into this without knowing anything about Constantine really and follow it.
Does City of Demons draw from the comic books?
The foundation of this was a graphic novel called All His Engines by Mike Carey and Leonardo Manco. And that we used sort of as the basic template and built on that because there's a lot of other things in here that aren't in the graphic novel. And we pulled some other things from Constantine's history. And so it is the graphic novel in the sense that if you know the graphic novel, you'll see things that are familiar and it's the general arc of the story. But there's a lot more going on in this story than was going on in the graphic novel.
On John Constantine's enduring appeal.
Someone asked me that, and my answer is, who the hell knows? Really? I mean, I could say, like we were talking on the panel, what I like about writing the character, the duality that's built into it. He's a real bastard, but he's always on the side of light in the end, and he's just got a real interesting psychology. But lots of characters have that, and they're not Constantine. It's like, why is Harry Potter popular when there's 1,000 other really, really good young adult fantasy novels out there? Whatever reason it is that something clicks in the collective consciousness, I don't have an answer to that question. I really don't. Why, when there were like thousands of great bands in the 60s, did the Beatles explode? You don't have, there's no answers. It's some sort of, just like there's chemistry between people, there's chemistry between characters and the audience, I think. And the same way you might walk into a party and meet somebody and you just click with them, an audience clicks with a character the same way, and it's not explicable necessarily.
DeMatteis on what makes this Constantine different.
I think this one is really the closest to the character in the comics. You really get the Constantine that we know with the comics, with all that complexity and all that darkness, and I think because we were working from that graphic novel, it really, and I had written the Justice League Dark comic book for a few years as well, so I was familiar with that character in his comic book incarnations. So we could really bring more of the comic book reality into the story.
On Constantine's City of Demons' unique release schedule.
I would understand the audience's frustration, because I wasn't sure how they were going to release this stuff, so they released the first 5, so I'm thinking, well, maybe next month they'll release the next 5. Then I discovered it's the first 5, then it's the movie, and then there will be more for CWC at another point in time, So, but they're working, this is a whole new model for them. They've only done this a couple of times before. So it's interesting because I think there are people that will watch it on CW Seed that won't necessarily go out and buy the DVD. And then, there are the completists that really, really want the whole story that'll go for the DVD. So there might be 2 different audiences. They overlap at a certain point, but there might be 2 different audiences.
What does Matt Ryan bring to the character of Constantine?
Every once in a while there's perfect casting. Especially with these superhero movies, sometimes you go in, the casting, he doesn't see it. To me, he's like he stepped out of the book. He so embodies, he looks it, first of all. I said on the panel, I remember when the first ads came out, I was writing Justice League Dark at the time, and I look at the ad on the back of the book, and I look in the book, it's the same guy, He really looks like Constantine come to life. And he plays it perfectly, and it's just, whoever made the casting choice to cast him was a genius, because I think it's some of the best comic book to screen casting ever done.
DeMatteis discusses writing the film and its R rating.
Yeah, no one ever even spoke to me about a rating, about limitations on content. I have to say, I've done a lot of animated projects over the years. This may be one of my very, very favorites. The whole process, creatively, through the writing, working with the producers, the notes that they had, everybody was invested in just making the story as good as possible. No one said, do this, don't do that. You know, it was just, let's make this the best story we can, and let's make this really matter to the characters. And that's, you know, that's really important. You have 90 minutes, and it's great to have the demons, and it's great to have the explosions and the blood and the guts, you know. But if it's not a character-based story, if this story doesn't matter to Constantine and to Chaz, then it's just pyrotechnics, you know? And that's what I'm most proud of with this story. And you'll see when by the time you get to the end of the movie, it's a really deeply emotional story. And when you have that as your foundation, and then you have the pyrotechnics, it's really great. You know, sometimes you go to see superhero movies, and the whole third act is just bang and boom and buildings collapsing, and there's no emotional turn really happening. It's just a couple of guys fighting. The climax of this movie is so important emotionally to the characters and the rest of their lives as a result. So I think that's what I liked about this more than anything.
On the film not tying into any established animated continuity.
Right. I always like it when you don't have to tie in a lot of continuities to things. You know, you want to have a little nods to things, but a story should stand on its own 2 feet. You know, and if you have your 90 minutes, go in and tell a great story that anyone can walk in and see and enjoy. And if you have the little nuggets that the fans can go, oh that or oh that, you know, that's great. But that's never the goal, at least for me. You know, because continuity can get so wound up in itself that for me it can be a turnoff after a certain point.
DeMatteis discusses the evolution of John Constantine.
Constantine, on the outer shell, Constantine's the manipulative bastard without a heart. But of course he has a heart. It's just hard to get to it. And this story really drills in and gets to his heart. And that to me is the arc. You know, when you strip him bare through the story, and by the end he's really, I don't want to say more, you really get to the heart of it.
Are there any characters DeMatteis hasn't written yet that he's looking forward to adapting to the screen?
There's so many. You know, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, Keith Giffen and I wrote Justice League International for years, which is a much more comedic take on superheroes. I would love to do a JLI story. There are other great supernatural characters, like the Spectre, the Phantom Stranger would be great. And there's a couple of stories there's a Batman story that I've written called Going Sane that I think would make a great animated movie. There's a Superman Elseworlds, it's a Superman Batman Elseworlds called Speeding Bullets, which I think would be a great animated movie too. But I don't make those decisions. They come to me and say, we're doing this now, you know?